welcome to Grown Folks Thursday. So listen, we had a little bit of a good conversation going before we hit the air, so that's why we're a little tardy. Excuse us, but some things don't make the cut. So we're here and we live now, and we have a couple new faces in the place, and we have some familiar ones that are watching us on YouTube or Facebook, and some people that are just tuning in for the first time. Also, welcome everyone. I think we're gonna have a good show. I will possibly address some of the conversation we were having before we got started tonight at the end, because I have, hey Bonnie, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Because I actually have some other things I'd like to start off with. Bob, good to see you. Glad you're in the space, just not in the place, but good to see you. So the title of tonight's show is what would MLK do? And I meant that, from a sense of him witnessing what is transpiring right now, from the presidency of Donald Trump to now the current presidency of Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris as his vice president. There's a lot of celebratory things taking place that center him as a man and center certain aspects of what he shared with us in terms of his ideology, but they limited. So what I decided to do tonight was to put together a couple of clips and let them play. And I have to begin with one that comes from WPA files after the 1930s, 40s. Some reporters were allowed to go around, and people who work for the federal government, and record the last remaining survivors of slavery. So I'm going to start with a clip from that. Please pay attention to all of it, and we'll come back and unpack certain aspects of it. Then I'm going to play a couple of short clips that have to do with the man himself, MLK. But try to bear with me as I do this. I think I have everything set in place where I can share and begin. But everybody that's in the space, just enjoy this about 12, 13 minutes of footage, and be ready to unpack it in just a minute. Let's see. Let me get this going. And let me know if you guys can hear right away.
But John Henry Felton may have experienced the most profound effect. He was a graduate student when he interviewed the former slaves, including the two women you hear in this broadcast. Himself interviewed just before he died in 1979, Falk was going on about how he believed in giving blacks the right to go to school, giving them the right to vote, giving them the right to go into anything they qualified for. And then he said he experienced an epiphany.
I sat down on a wagon tongue with this old black man and was telling him what a different kind of white man I was. I remember him looking at me very sadly and kind of sweetly and condescending and said, you still got the disease, honey. I know you think you're cured, but you're not cured. You can't give me the right to be a human being. I'm born with that right. Now, you can keep me from having that. If you've got all the policemen and all the jobs on your side, you can deprive me of it. But you can't give it to me. And I was born with it just like you was. My God, it had a profound effect on me. I was furious with him. But the more I reflected on it, the more profoundly it affected me. And I realized this was where it really was.
Tell you the truth, when I think of it today, I don't know how I'm living.
I remember that just as well look like to me, I think.
Been slaves all our lives, and mother was a slave, sister was a slave, father was a slave.
They know enough about reading like that. All that I know is that she keeps mind them awesome and misses. Mama didn't know where to go. She after she was go, just like he's showing some mountain, didn't know where to go.
They are haunting voices from the past, not actors reading a script or scholars reading a text, but the actual voices of men and women, Americans, who were born in slavery.
My name is Felton Foushee. I was born in Charlottesville, Virginia. My grandfather belonged to Thomas Jefferson. My grandfather was 115 years old when he died. And now I am 101 years old. Some people didn't have no beds when they were slaves. You won't sleep on the floor. Side here, side there. Just like a lot of wild people. We didn't know nothing. Didn't like to look at no book.
Harriet Smith, remembering what she saw as a small girl during the final days of the Civil War.
We said all that shit on that picket fence all day long, seeing them soldiers going back to silent zones in different places. Colored soldiers in Georgia. That's right along by our house. Our home is a two-story house.
These recorded memories were among thousands of interviews done with ex-slaves in the 1930s and 40s.
Do you remember slavery days very well?
Of course, I remember all our white folks, and all the names of them, all the children. Call every one of the children's names.
Who did you belong to?
Jim Brunson, the baby boy.
The results of these digitally enhanced recordings are arresting, almost unbelievable. The idea of hearing the voices of actual slaves from the plantations of the Old South is as powerful, as startling really, as if you could hear Abraham Lincoln or Robert E. Lee speak. Listen again to Felton Foushee, who was born in 1848.
We were slaves. We belonged to people. They sell us like they sell horses and cows and hogs and all like that. Have an auction bench and put you up on the bench and beat on you the same as beating on cattle, you know.
Much of what these three former slaves say may at first seem unremarkable. Much of what they say may surprise and upset, and their calm demeanor is at odds with the evil and violence we associate with slavery. Here is 91-year-old Texan Laura Smalley talking in the 1940s about the outcome of a tussle between two women, one black, one white, one slave, one mistress. The mistress tried to slap the slave, but the black woman pushed her into a chair. Laura Smalley was a girl at the time, but she remembers vividly what happened to the black woman when the master came home.
But I think that poor old woman carrying the peach orchard and whipped her. And, just tied her hand this way, around the peach orchard tree. I remember that just as well, looked like to me, I think. And round the tree and whipped her. Well, she couldn't do nothing but just kick her feet, just kick her feet. But it just had her clothes all down to her waist, It didn't have her front naked, but they had her clothes down to her waist. And every now and then they'd hook her, and then snuff the pipe out on her, snuff the pipe out on her. The end was in the pipe, but where you'll see the pipe smoke.
Blowing out on? Good. Oh, man.
The plantation on which Smalley was a slave sounds brutal. She recalls scrambling with other children for food from a huge wooden tray, like a hog trough.
All of them, would get around that tree with spoons and eat chicken like mush or soup or something like that. All them children get around there and just eat.
Felton Foushee tells his interviewer about the relentless round of work for him on a Virginia plantation.
Night never comes out. You have nothing to do. Time to cut the back out. If you want you to cut all night long, nothing to you cut. And if you want you to hang all night long, you hang the back. It didn't matter about you tired. You're afraid to say you're tired.
It was cotton, not tobacco, that solidified slavery, though. The invention of the cotton gin at the end of the 18th century made its processing easy, but the crop still needed enormous amounts of unskilled labor. Control of the slave and his labor through laws and regulations became paramount. Felton Foushee talks about one of those controls, the pass system.
Now, I couldn't go from here across the street, or I couldn't go to nobody's house without I have a note or something from my master. And if I had that pass, that was what we call a pass. If I had that pass, I could go wherever he sent me, and I'd have to be back. And when I go where he sent me to, they'd give me another pass, and I'd bring that back. So it's a show how.
Even emancipation didn't truly free the slaves. Freedom freed slaves for more travail. The end of the Civil War found many cast adrift without skills and no place to go. And the Yankees who freed them weren't always seen as benevolent liberators.
I remember when the Yankees came along and took all the good horses and took sold all the meat and flour and sugar and stuff out in the river and let it go down the river. And they knew the people wouldn't have nothing to live on, but they done that.
The ex-slaves left one hell for another, perhaps an even more dangerous one. No longer property, they didn't have the protections afforded property.
When we were slaves, we couldn't do that. See? And if we got free, we didn't know nothing to do. And my mother, she hunted places and bound us out for $1 a month. But we didn't have no property, we didn't have no home. We had nowhere, nothing. We didn't have nothing on it, just like the cattle. We just turned out and get along the best you could.
In Texas, the slaves weren't told they were free until 2 months after the war ended. Smalley remembers that her masters gave the slaves a dinner and then...
All right. I'm going to continue on with another clip or two, and they're short, much shorter. But I'm doing this to try to create a thread so that, for one, you have heard from people who were indeed slaves. Those recordings exist. They're a treasure trove of historical evidence that need to be unpacked relentlessly. It's a continuous thing that can be gathered from those recordings. But the next clip I'm going to show is Martin Luther King Jr. himself in a clip that doesn't get a lot of airplay. It exists, so I'm going to show it to you.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farm. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. This is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
What's it?
Wait a minute. It didn't disappear. You might forget Martin Luther King was assassinated in April. The Poor People's Campaign was supposed to...
Before I play the very last one, I will have a bit of a discussion. We can unpack some of this because I still have one other that's a bit jovial in my opinion, and it's short also. But I did that because he's speaking about a specific group of people in that latter clip. He's speaking about the Negro. If you saw on that podium where they were selling African Americans, black people, ADOS Americans, Negroes. That's what the sign said. Negroes for sale. Speaking about a specific group of people. So why do we celebrate a work unfinished and a dream unfulfilled? Pearls and Chucks are nice. Little black, well, she's not a girl from what I learned. She's 22 years old, my gosh, but she did an awesome job, and I'm not remembering her name at the moment, but she did an awesome job with the poem. But his dream is not fulfilled, and what he was talking about is not what we hear about. So it has been to our detriment as a nation to ignore the things that he was actually trying to get done. So what would he do today? What do you think his take would be on the current state of America? And we can begin with Lisa.
Really, Felton?
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, it's still familiar with what had already transpired in respect to the violence, but to not just accept this little bit, because I understand what you're saying in respect to, no, we haven't overcome per se, but there are a tremendous amount of issues. But I believe that Dr. King would celebrate incremental victories, like Voting Rights Act, him being right there when these things were happening, but also not have us forget and give up on the continuation for equality, because this is not equality. It's not equality, and I understand that, but I don't think he would not celebrate the small victories and still fight the war.
So the beautiful thing about some of the most iconic historical figures that we get to look back at are the things they left behind. In that clip, he's talking about economics. He's hey, there are other clips where he's actually saying, my dream became a nightmare. There are things that we took for granted, or we're taking for granted, in terms of sitting next to someone at a counter or coming in the front door, but they didn't do much in terms of economic empowerment in the Black community. You got to have some money to live in America, and he was talking about that. But that's not what is celebrated. And I don't know that he celebrates these small victories. I maybe he does, but good gracious, small victories, good gracious, man. How far have we not come? Names are not showing up for me, and I don't know why. But Mike, I remember, and I see a gentleman that's in the space that I have to call him. But Mike, go ahead. What are your thoughts? Why do we celebrate a work that's not finished?
Good evening. Good evening. I want to piggyback on what you said. I think it would celebrate that, we got where we at, but I would like for us blacks not to be happy about that. We need to fight for more things. We need to hold these people accountable for what they say they're going to do. Not just look like us, not just talk like us, but represent us. If you understand what I'm saying, you can get up there and talk this good game and say these good things, but do you represent us? Are you going to represent us when it comes down to passing these bills, making a change, economical change, equality change? That's what we need. I'm tired of hearing you talk about it. I'm tired of hearing any race say something about it, but not do something about it. It frustrates me when I hear, more of like, I love you playing those tracks, because if you can hear the pain in their voice of what they had to endure. And that's why now when I talk about these things, when I go to certain movements, their pain is my pain this day, because I see, that the white man do this, or any man does this, that how they still try to hold us over our head and try to dangle us like a string, and it happens. People don't want to relive the past, but I think it's good to relive the past. It's good to relive history, because they know where we was at and where we at now. We'll be like, well, we ain't too far from where we was at. We have accomplished some great things, I love the Chuck Taylors and Pearls, but we need more than Chuck Taylors and Pearls. We need to make a change. So that means we need to hold these people that we have voted into these seats accountable. Now we got a checkoff list of what you say you're gonna do. So we got 4 years that this needs to happen. Now we got 2-year elections coming up that these things need to happen around in our communities. So I just say, let's keep reflecting on our past, one. And let's not give up on this fight, man, that we're going to get change and we're going to live the dream that Martin Luther King wanted to see and hear about, if we keep fighting this fight.
So the fight is eternal, it seems, right? My whole, and don't forget to mute yourself, Mike. I don't want to have you think. So the fight is eternal, so it seems. I don't have time for Chucks and Pearls and look at the colors that they wore. I don't have time for it. We don't have time for it, but we love to celebrate and dance and have a good time. It's to our detriment. It's not anything substantial.
Well, Felton.
Hold on 1 second. Before we go to debate time, Lisa, hold on to your thought. I got one more person I need to get to on the panel. Please. I'm coming back to you. I promise you. Dr. Eric Kelly, I see your name now. I can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Good evening, and I came in a little bit late, but I think I kind of understand what the question was, and I'm pretty sure I have a little different take on Martin Luther King because I'm an artist, and it took me a long time to draw him. Because even though we celebrate him, until his last speech when he said that he feared he led his people into the jaws of hell, did I really begin to embrace him actually seeing what was going on, because all of the nonviolence and all the stuff that he was talking about, it didn't take us to where we as a super race was going. While our neighborhoods and our Black Wall Streets all over the country was being burnt down, we missed out on us joining together to become a real people inside of this nation. And so if you ask me the question, what would Martin do in 2021? I think Martin King, like most men who were pushing for the struggle, would be very disappointed, not just in Black people, but just in all of us and I'm not speaking for everybody, I'm just saying it in general, but many of us in general, because right now we don't have grocery stores. We don't have our own food quarter. We don't have things that can sustain us as a group of people. And that's kind of where my whole deal with the whole, I would say, civil rights and the Martin Luther King movement, we've fallen into mind control in terms of jumping it up and down and cheering and dancing, and not looking at our economic struggle, because our economic struggle is our only real freedom.
And I appreciate you sharing those thoughts and sentiments. If you could, don't forget to mute yourself. I don't know what, if anything, Joe Biden has for Black Americans in his first 100 days. I know he's got some good stuff for immigrants and some good stuff for other things and this, that, and the other, and he gonna take care of COVID. I think he's more than competent. I think a lot of people would be more than competent to take care of the pandemic we're dealing with. But specifics, we get to have a poet laureate stand and say some nice words and talk about Chucks and Pearls. And I've already made it clear that Kamala is proudly Indian and Jamaican. Yet we celebrate her, and as we celebrated Barack Obama, as if they descend from the institution of slavery. We have yet to see a person that descends from the institution of slavery attain those highest offices in this land. Yet we've been here since the beginning and built this country. Lisa, what did you want to add to the space?
My Felton. Here is where the Chucks and Pearls and the incremental steps come in. I had on Chucks and Pearls yesterday. They begin conversations for people who have no idea what the heck is going on because they are in places and spaces that is not disseminating the information that you have and the people on this panel have and the people who are in this arena. So if we are representing with our Chucks and Pearls and someone asks a question, because they ask questions. I walked into Target and the person at the door, she said something to me about the Chucks and Pearls, and I got to have a conversation. This woman was probably 24 years old. Additionally, I sent out emails to groups, and more mature women in their 40s was like, oh, I kept hearing about Chucks and Pearls. I kept hearing about Chucks and Pearls. What does that mean? So I got to have a conversation about what that statement was meaning, and then I got to go further. So if you don't have a way to open the door with something that may seem entertaining or may seem surface level, then you can't engage people who don't know and don't understand. Because a lot that 40-something-year-old, she's not slow, right? She's not slow, but she's also not as woke as she even knows she's not. But all I'm saying is to not just go in and just slashing everything, because everybody's not going to be as receptive or open coming like this. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I don't feel like that's a, so it's not a reason for me to be feeling, I don't feel good about Chucks and Pearls. That's my own personal perspective. You can wear a t-shirt with a person on it that sparks conversation. I made Barack Obama t-shirts during his first run when I was a strong, staunch supporter. And they did what you said. People look and say, well, what's about him? And let me tell me more. Conversations can be sparked in numerous ways. I'm not a proponent of finding new meaning in Chucks and Pearls for those purposes. That's a bit, and in this case, there's akin to celebrating someone that hasn't done anything, and also who ran for president and was not selected because she wore Chucks and Pearls then. When the conversation started then, but she gets selected down the road, and it's a whole lot. I don't even want to go back over Kamala Harris and all of that stuff. But the sentiment is, show me. I'll help. You know what? I'll wear some Chucks and Pearls if her policies speak to Black Americans and speak specifically to what we need in this country done for us not to just fall by the wayside and off the cliff. I don't know that she does that.
But
so I can't celebrate nothing about something you ain't done.
We don't have the engagement. Okay, so
what do you mean by that? What you mean by we don't have the engagement?
We don't have the engagement in respect to, we don't make these phone calls. That insurrection was because people claimed what they believed to be theirs. We're not making phone calls. We're not going up to the municipalities. We're not demanding what we say we want. And if it's only 5 of us out of 10,000, how powerful is that? So what I'm saying, and I'm gonna feed it right to you about our conversation, that 40-something-year-old that I had the conversation with yesterday, after that Chucks and Pearls got opened up and she got a little slip bit of education about what that was meaning, it led me into what me and you were talking about. And that is something that directly impacts her. So she got to be on the bandwagon, right? Because she's following me because I educated her. And then with her following me, we're going to be following and getting more people on board for our own level of in-between insurrection and protesting, right? That's what I'm saying.
So you said a couple of things, and I almost stopped you because, like I said, I like to unpack certain things that are said, and I really appreciate what you're sharing. So one of the things I'll say, gosh, man, it's not that I'm poo-pooing these wonderful interactions that you can have, but honestly, I don't know the significance of Pearls and Chucks besides Kamala's an AKA and she wore some Chucks. That's the only significance they hold for me, which isn't much. So I don't know how that sparks this wonderful conversation. I'll give you credit for what I know of you because you can talk to people. I could say if you had on something else that she liked, y'all still might have had that same conversation and made that same connection. I don't give the credit to the Chucks and Pearls. I give the credit to you. Now, with that being understood, in the totality of what you said, something very important is this, like, we got to give it to incremental. We have what I just played for you, the direct recorded statements of people who were living in the most atrocious of circumstance. The guy who was narrating said some of the most false stuff when he said these people left and didn't have skills, and these people were great farmers. These people had skills. They had the skills to build this country. What was MLK saying in the very next clip? Yeah. They brought Europeans here and sent them to schools and learned how to farm. Black folks already knew how to farm. We're here all of these years later, and we're still happy about some chucks and pearls and saying, hey, incremental, a little bit at a time. I am by no means somebody who's saying let's rush the show, but we have to live in honesty, in truth, and we have to speak from that perspective. Now, if once again, I made this clear to numerous people, I don't care who does it. You can be black, white, blue, green, purple. John Brown's one of the greatest Americans to ever live. He was white. I don't care who you are from a ethnic standpoint. If you're talking the talk that's based on the truth and reality of the life experience of Black Americans and where we are today versus where we should be, then I can rock with you. If you wear chucks and pearls or not. But I can't just rock with you because you're wearing chucks and pearls. You got to be talking that good talk, and you got to be doing something with it. So anybody have something they want to add? I'm not moving on past MLK because I had another statement I want to make. But Meryl, you hadn't said anything yet. If you have something you want to add, please feel free. But I know you're also running the show.
Yeah, I will just real quickly. The only thing I was going to say is, like, I think if he was here, Martin Luther King was here now, especially with the framing of the Poor People's Campaign and the work he was doing for economic liberation, he'd be disappointed that, home ownership rates are no different today than they were in 1968. And some of the same folks that I think he was counting on, and folks who are moderate allies, quote unquote, support this idea of destroying free markets. I mean, our capitalist society, like, free markets are okay if they're truly free, but we have a lot of corporate socialism that continues to drive these wealth gaps to just unreal numbers, and it's normally through moderate democratic controlled government that we have the corporate bailouts. And so I just housing and just the fair spread of economic liberation it just hasn't happened. I think he'd be very disappointed.
So the letter he wrote in a Birmingham jail referenced his how he felt the potential worst aspect for us to have to deal with was the moderate white person. If you recall, when I first started playing that clip, the man who is referenced at the very beginning of that clip about that had the former slaves in it, he's thinking he's a good white person, right? Hey, I felt good. I'd say just give him a chance, an opportunity, education. And he sits down with this older Black person that tells him, you can't give me that. I'm born with it. But you can take it from me because this system in this country allows you to. That's the person that MLK was talking about in that letter. Somebody that thinks they're good. I'm good. But I know you just need another chance, just a little bit more time. Time is up. We can't keep just pushing this can on down, kicking this can on down the road. The can is here, and it needs to be opened, crushed, recycled, whatever. Let's talk about this from a real perspective in place. We can't keep BSing this. Anybody else have something they want to say before I present this next little caveat about MLK? We can unpack this a little further with the time we have left, because I'm trying to keep it tight.
I wanted Jay. I was just Jay Garnett, who put the letter he wrote would be amended now. I would just love him to put in the comments, like, how so? I would love to see his thoughts. All right.
Oh yeah, it's been amended, and I can get to this. Matter of fact, I'll start at the end. It's been amended because of what we're allowed to embrace and know of this great man. So let me play my final clip of the night, and then we'll unpack for a few minutes before we get out of here. So here's my last clip to show what they've done to that letter.
If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. By definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know the theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics in physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace. Soul generated by love.
Wow. That's that letter right there. Packaged up, made for marketing purposes. Let's sell something with it. Quick clip of a lot of things in that. What would be symbolic of an American life. I didn't see too many black people, but you know, I'm sure somebody will say, well, what about the indigenous person or the Latino or whoever else was in the commercial? Great. He was a humanist. MLK believed in the human race. But I did see a quick clip of the military. Oh man, military industrial complex was something he spoke out against vociferously. And Vietnam War conversations he had about that were one of the reasons they say his life was ended. So I say all that to say, man, revisiting him makes him something that a lot of people said that he was not at the time that he lived. And this is where I was going with this. I had a conversation with one of my former professors at Central, and he said MLK was more radical than Malcolm X. Now, I'm at the point in my life where I'm wrestling with the word radical when it comes to how one perceives themselves on the world stage and how they think that their existence should be able to be had. So if you believe in rights for humans, human rights, then what's radical about that? So that's a sidebar. But at the time, MLK, Malcolm X was more radical, in my opinion, during the times that they lived. The times that they lived. A lot of it probably is contingent on the practice of nonviolence that MLK held near and dear. But in hindsight, as we revisit the past, MLK, and I want to know if you guys agree, becomes way more radical because we're selective with what we listen to from him. So at the time of his existence, I still side on he was not as radical as Malcolm X, if you look at radical in that way that they mean it. But where we're at now, man, you look at the clips I just showed you, the clip I just showed you, man, that's radical. Now, very radical, because that's been subverted. You don't hear about it. So what are you guys' thoughts? Was MLK radical then, or has he become more radical because we've ignored him for so long, or his messaging has been suppressed for so long? I'll go in reverse this time. Let me come to you first, Doctor. You got to unmute yourself.
I think what people don't remember about Martin King was the bus boycott that lasted almost 2 years. And what people don't remember about Dr. Martin Luther King was the trash can or the next move he was making to go to, I think it was Tennessee or somewhere, why he was actually in Tennessee. And he began to talk about economic inclusion and that's what got him killed. People can talk all about what he did, the nonviolence and all this stuff, but when he shut down the government in terms of transportation, that's when the government looked at him as a real threat. And the next thing we know, he was taken from us. Now, Malcolm, who was having his own inside problems with the Muslims, who it seemed to be something that was tearing away at their religion, seemed to be more out there. But when you sit back and start talking about messing with the government movement, because the only freedom we have, we can talk till we turn blue. The only freedom we have is movement. If you could imagine Martin King being alive today and saying things like "let's buy this" or "let's buy that" as a group, then that just changes the game for white people in their economics or in their pockets. And so when you start talking about radical, I always say you got to follow the money. And in terms of how I see it, if you look at us today, we are not following our own money, and that's pretty much what my mindset is on King, on Malcolm, and all our leaders. The Black Lives Matter person who just got millions and millions of dollars donated to their organization, and that person is not even one of us in our communities, and even coming from our communities. We have got to some way turn this whole economic structure around and go back to the old school of supporting each other, as opposed to listening to television and watching them telling us what to.
There's a wonderful points that were made. There's a opportunity for a much deeper conversation in terms of the black dollar, because it was going to happen. I have conversations with friends who always, segregation messed us up, desegregation messed us up. We were so good. It was going to happen. You were spending money that belongs to a government of a country that you live in. Your money was leaving your community anyway. And there's a whole lot more that comes with that, but it's not just possible for us to take care of ourselves when we don't run this thing. We don't own certain things. We have to get proper representation. But again, we're celebrating people who don't have an attachment to that legacy. We're propping up and dancing and having a good time, and what is it, to be in it but not of it, man, or of it and not in it? However you want to say that, it's a connection that's missing. The lineage is not there. Doesn't have to be, if they're honest and look at history and view this thing through the lens it should be viewed. Talk about it, be about it, take care of the least of your people. But we keep missing that. Mike, go ahead if you got some words to add here, please.
God. What I have to say is, I don't think he was radical. I think the society would think he's radical when he starts speaking up and speaking out about what's right. I see one of his quotes that he said, our lives begin to end on the day we become silent about the things that matter. So I think when he starts speaking about the things that matter, he's radical. He's crazy. When black people start getting using our voice and exercising our rights, we radical, we crazy. We about to tear something up. No, we about to tear your minds up. So that's when we radical. That's when we crazy, because how would I say, we penetrating into where we need to go. I believe we going where we need to go, but we got to start holding these people accountable. Like you keep saying, hey, I was guilty of yesterday. I love the pearls and the chucks, but that's not gonna get us economical change. That's not gonna get us where we need to get. I love the poem for the young girl, 22 years old, Amanda. I love those things, because what I think those things does is it educates our younger generation and those that are older that, hey, I can reach for the sky, and the sky is the limit. I can get there. I'm hoping that's what it does. But when it does that, I hope that we can get in these seats that we need to be in to make a change and make a difference. Dr. Martin Luther King, we love to see where we at now, because we are getting somewhere. I believe we are. But like you said, people that we mentioned, they're not of the color of black. They're you know what I'm saying? They're not black, but they are colored people. So we've got to continue this fight out here, man, to build our black economy up, man. You know, just don't get comfortable with we got these people that represent us. No, so you represent us, you talk like us, but do you represent us in these places though? You look like us, you talk like us. We rephrase that. You look like us, you talk like us, but do you represent us? You know, you dress like me, you talk like me, but do you represent me? And that's what goes with any of these things in our small seats and these big seats. You know, walk like us, talk like us, but do you represent us? So no, I don't think he was radical. I think it's because he was exercising his rights and he was expressing how he feels. If you shake someone up a long time, they're gonna explode. So that's what has been going on. He's been shooken up, you know, through the boycott, through all the different things that Martin Luther King had to go through. He was shooken up. He was angry. He was mad that, man, I'm doing all this fighting for this right here by myself, and I got people support me, but it's nothing happening. But he didn't get tired though.
But so good points, Mike. He did get extremely tired though, man. From what I heard, you know, and what I read about him behind the scenes, man, he was in a constant state of fatigue. There was a question up that Mr. Surgeon posted, and I'm not able to see it anymore, but I want to make sure. Yeah. So is the only connection so is it only the connection to a slave that determines if someone is representing the correct cause? No, please do not misappropriate that. This is not a colorist thing. This is not a nativist thing. This is not you have to be a member of a group. Please, John Brown, white man. Without him, I don't know that we get our freedom. He was the catalyst, one of the catalysts of the Civil War. And what he did at Harper's Ferry was profound because he was a white man who did it. Didn't have to. People thought he was crazy. People said he was too much of this and too much of that. But what he was somebody who valued the human being, humanity, and black people. So you don't have to have a connection to anything. I want people to stand in truth. And that means wrestling with these things. That means these conversations can take place and we can talk about people's lineage, heritage, where they come from, and how they're moving in certain spaces and claiming certain things, but not dealing with stuff that empowers the people they claim to be like and to be so much in love with. We can talk about it. We have to stop compromising ourselves and finding reasons why we can't discuss it. Ooh, we shouldn't talk about that. That don't feel right. We got to get away from that stuff. Truth hurts. We the ones that's hurting the most. It's because we ain't dealing with the truth. So no, you do not have to have a connection. What was the next question? Then I'm coming to Lisa. I know Bob said something, and if there was a question in there, Meryl, was there another question? I'm living in the time MLK was not seen as a radical as Malcolm X. I would say MLK worse, and Malcolm X was scary. Okay. He became radical because of similar awakening. Okay, we are missing parts of the history. Okay, yep, no question. Go ahead. You can get your words in from me, Lisa.
Number one, we have the same goal and different methods. I believe in, velvet fist. Iron fist and a velvet glove.
Give me 1 second now. You said we had the same goal, different methods. I stand with truth. So you telling me you don't like truth? I don't think that's what you're doing.
No. I'm saying the goal is for us to actually be reaping what all this fight has been about, right? And I have a different method than you, or what have you. All of us, we're thinking, but we're all collectively thinking. I'm a practical person. So tell me, what besides this, what now? What would you like to see as a practical application for the change, a real change for our empowerment and for us to have a piece of this pie, be at the table that is feeding people without feeding the needs of the people?
Well, to quote the great MLK, the clip he said something about going to DC to get a check, right? That the reparations is a conversation that should be had, needs to be had. And Field Order 15, which was signed during the Civil War, said, as people should understand, these people are newly freed. They need land. What were those slaves on that clip, that first clip I showed you? We didn't have nothing. We didn't have no land. What did MLK discuss in that next clip? Land grant colleges, land grants, European immigrants coming over here and being taught how to farm. All of that's connected. If you stand on truth, if you stand on historical context, then you stand with me. There's no, we're not combating. We can celebrate pearls and chucks. Let's also reserve some of that celebration for what they're saying specifically to give us some redress. I'm serious. We can do both. We can have a good time and a good moment, but we can't just base it on, oh, I like hip hop. Oh, I dress this way, swag and whatever else. And I'm not even. That stuff frustrates me so much. People that know.
But how, Felton? How? What do you propose? We know the wants. We know the wants.
We have to have proper representation. Did I not just say that? What were you saying? The how?
Yeah, but a representation is 1 or 9 or 7, but everybody's not going to be a representative. So I'm not going to be a representative. What do you want me to do?
What do you mean? You have to. For one, a person has to show themselves to be a viable candidate that is actually speaking the truth on certain matters, right? So the truth needs to be heard, not, oh, they look how they're dressing and, oh, they like this type of music. And no, all of that aside, they can be personable. They can like what you like, but what they're talking about. What do you need to see in your community? What do you need to see from a lineage standpoint? You have grandkids, Lisa. Don't you want to know that they're going to be okay? We keep kicking this can. Oh, this incremental thing feels good. Look, we'll get some more down the road. We always are on some hope, wish, dream stuff. And it's like, people are, well, just wait, give them a chance when we get in there. Man, y'all keep talking. I keep hearing everybody say we got to hold these people accountable. You hold them accountable on the way in. You don't get, man, what was I saying the whole time prior to November, Merrill? My vote is to be earned, not expected. Do not keep giving to these people something they didn't earn from you. We got to stop that. So I don't know if that still answers the question to the way that I intend to, but we have to find viable candidates, push them forward, hear the messaging, hold them accountable before you give them the vote. Understand that what they say they're going to do is specific to the group of people that need it the most. If you help Black folks specifically, you help everyone. But we keep parsing that, going around, messing with it. Oh, it's LGBTQ issues that need to be handled. It's women's issues that need to be handled. If you help the least of us, you help all of us. I swear. But you got to make it specific to Black people, but it helps everyone. How do you think we get civil rights? That was some stuff. I think it was 1868, I believe, Civil Rights Act. That was for Black people. That was for Black people. That was for ADOS, African American. That was for Black people. That helps other groups of people. The Civil Rights Act helps immigrants come into this country and succeed. It's all on our backs, but we don't get to see the benefits. And I think I'm gonna wind it down there, Merrill. I got to come to you for the last statement, but I hope everybody's enjoyed themselves, and edification is all it's about here, and it's not just from me. I'm learning from everybody in this space, and I'm glad that we're able to do this, and I appreciate Merrill for providing it for us. Well, go ahead, Merrill. You get the last words in.
I was just gonna say real quickly. I mean, it's really interesting. Like the victor gets to tell the story when you're talking about like the way that Martin Luther King is told in the story of him and how he moved versus Malcolm X. And when you murder somebody, you get to tell it, I guess, a different story because they're not around to tell it. And it's really funny to see this juxtaposition of just like, well, Martin was so peaceful and holding hands and just, you know, non-violent action, and then juxtapose Malcolm X being violent and fighting for economic freedom. But they both ended up with a bullet. But I'm just saying, I mean, that's the story that's told, but they both ended up with a bullet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so whether you're peaceful or you're radical, you upset the wrong person, you're getting shot.
Yeah.
So
if you have the interests of Black Americans, even just as a peripheral, even if it's something that if you do anything impactful, you might catch a bullet. Abraham Lincoln first. So you got to start when you start saying, hey, and I hope don't want that to welcome any of that, but you get the point. So there was a question that popped up, and I'm going to get off of here after that. And is it possible to utilize that rationale while still playing the game of politics? It absolutely is if you have a politician that's worth their salt. Tough to find them. Not saying that they hold up, because everybody, starts out one way, and I forget the saying, but it's something that I feel the government helping Black people led us to 60 years of less progress. I don't know. We can unpack that one later, but politicians, they exist in a space and a place, and then what is it all? And I always say it wrong, but I think you guys get the sentiment. All power corrupts all men. You get a little taste of something, you might be, potentially corruptible. However, integrity, morality, those things exist in people. You just got to find them, and you got to push them through. You got to work with them. They got to be like clay. Got to mold them some, get the edges to be less rough. But you got to support them, and you got to understand, man. Everybody's human. Everybody's fallible. Everybody makes mistakes. But if somebody is stringent on something that only makes sense for the human condition, for humanity itself, then them people are somebody that you might need to reconsider aligning yourself with. And I'll leave it mostly there. I appreciate the time, space, and the place. I hope I was well received and was clear in my communication. Man, I love everybody. I really do. I want to see everybody succeed in this crazy world. I have nothing but the utmost love and respect for everyone. I truly do. And I apologize anytime I encroach upon those things. Nothing but love and respect. But I'm telling you, we got to stop playing the games and song and dancing it and Converses and Chucks. Man, I wear them though. I put them on if they talking like they're supposed to talk.
I'm gonna send you some for real. I'm gonna send you some for real.
I will be the first to wear them if she ever speaks to the levels of addressing specific things in the Black community. I will put on some pearls and some Converses. I promise. All right, you guys have a wonderful evening. We'll catch you next week. Take it easy, and we'll try to have a little bit more fun in the future. Y'all take care.
Thanks everybody. We're going to end the broadcast.
All right, take care.